Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this. Welcome to another episode of Tiger's Den Live. I'm your host, Will Figueroa, and as always, we're joined by the founder of Cleveland Rain and also the man behind creating the Tiger mindset and the Tiger framework, Paul Routhier. Paul, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, evening, and afternoon, everyone. Taking your line today.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. We were kind of going back and forth in pre-show because today we're really going to dive again into generosity. We want to really make sure that those who watch and who are following this series really kind of understand even a little bit behind the scenes. And the last we spoke in regards to generosity, afterwards, we kind of looked at each other and we were like, dude, that was rough. And come to find out, it was because, at least for me, and I'll speak for myself, there were cultural differences in generosity. Generosity is very hard, and I'll speak for myself. Generosity was really hard for me to speak about and kind of, wrap between you and I, because for me, generosity, quite frankly, growing up, it was very stingy. I'll call it for what it is. Generosity was only at home. It started at home first, and then whatever else was left over, then maybe. And that's considering what else happened in the home, if there was a need or maybe there was an emergency, whatever the case may be. And then maybe you would be able to give a few dollars as opposed to hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands to a church or another organization, or honestly, the last thing that you would ever do, at least again, this is the way that I grew up, was actually give it to an individual. And so generosity for me, to speak about it, was really difficult. And you had some really interesting insights too, as well. Talk to me about, or let the audience know, whoever's watching, talk to me about your experience with generosity too. And because I think people needed to know, right? Like, of all the other episodes, that was definitely the roughest. And the reason being was there was cultural differences, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting when we were talking about it. There's not only culture differences, but it's we as a people differences. We as business leaders, there's always a fear. It's interesting. My mother just never gave to anything. I mean, she had to be paid for it. There had to be a quid pro quo. Very tight, Portuguese Roman Catholic background. So it was there's a kind of a interesting transition there. But she did give to the Catholic Church, right?
Right.
So
yeah.
that was where she was generous,
home,
because she identified with those people,
right,
with that group of people,
right,
and she gave there. So generosity is kind of tough, because there is an underlying fear with us as a people that we're going to get taken advantage of, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, ultimately, there's a little ticker down in the back of your brain that says, if I do too much and receive nothing, then I've been taken advantage of.
Oh, that's so
interesting. Then
there's insightful.
There's resentment that starts building, right?
Oh, totally. And doesn't that give emphasis or credit to then the idea that it wasn't really generous to begin with, if you're expecting something, right? Because I would think that if you're being generous, that you would give without expectation, right? And for me, again, full transparency, these are like recent learnings for me, right? It wasn't until in my late 20s, I'm 33, that I realized that it's not, to your point, right? I grew up in a Latin home too, right? Puerto Rican, growing up in the home, and it was very a lot of times, although never necessarily said out loud, it was a lot of that quid pro quo, right? Like, scratch my back, I scratch your back, kind of thing, right? So to give and then feel resentment or to feel hurt because there wasn't anything back, it's like, well, is that truly generosity? And you're giving me such a light bulb moment. I'm so glad that we're able to speak about this, because I had never put two and two together in regards to fear of being hurt, of from giving. How can we get over that fear, right? Is it to get over a past, event? Is there something else that we need to do in order to truly give without expectation?
Yeah, there is, because a lot of your conversation wrapped around generosity has to do with giving money, right? I'm gonna give money to a person, give and that's really not where I'm coming from. I mean, giving money, like the police foundation locally hits
Sure,
us
yeah,
every year,
grocery store.
and we throw that out, and we throw out. Um, True giving is of action. Money is kind of a lazy thing, right? I mean,
Mm,
it doesn't take any time to give money.
oh, what a gem!
It is
I love
like,
that.
I have it. I have some extra. Here you go. That really doesn't do it, because there's a fulfilling part of generosity, and that comes with action. We always talk about taking action. So let's take
Mm,
action in generosity, right? So um, my daughter is, I'm very proud of her right now. She just opened up, she's a senior in high school. And over the summer, she took the onus to open up a new program at her high school. It's called the Letters of Love, right?
wow.
And this is a national foundation, right? And she is like in there, she negotiating with the principal. She set up the platform. She
Tip off the old
set
block,
up,
huh?
yeah, she set up um, the money. She got a group of people together wrapped around it. She's got a treasurer. This is on her summer vacation that she's putting all this together, and
Amazing.
stamped it in a place. And Letters of Love is a really awesome organization. What they do is they put out letters and gifts to children that are, in disease, in the hospital, whether it's the children's hospital, like, is and it's an amazing organization. And she's built this wrapped up, right? She hasn't given a dime.
Wow.
This is her heart, right? And she's gaining fulfillment from that, right? We go down to the homeless shelter once in a while, and we serve food. We
Yeah.
also donate some food, but we actually get involved. Okay, now there's a couple of things that come from that. We get community out of it, right? We meet other people, and I can't lie to you. I've gotten clients and business partners from those interactions, being generous with other organizations. Okay. I don't do it to get the clients. That's just the net export of the activity or the
Yeah.
action that I'm putting into it. So when I'm talking about generosity, I'm not specifically talking about doling out money. I'm talking generosity is a part of rejuvenation. It's fulfilling to help someone else.
Oh, really? Okay.
Okay. So when you're helping someone, a group of people, a cause, and you're donating your time to it, you get a sense of community, you get fulfilled, and you get some rejuvenation out of that.
Is a part of rejuvenation. I love that. And you're 100% right, Paul. I think in our conversation last time, speaking about generosity, you are 100% right. It was money focused because that's how I was raised,
Mhm.
right? And even in my limited time in business, it was always, well, I've always want, like, the dream of mine, a goal of mine is to be able to just write checks. Anyone who needs, and the way that I write it is something along the lines of, I am capable of writing a check to anyone who needs it, right? And it's always been financial because I've always put the onus on financial. And I got to be honest, you cut the heart kind of deep when you say that money is lazy when it comes to generosity. It's like, oof, oof, oof. Oh man, it's lazy. It's so lazy, and it cuts deep because it's cutting something out, right? That's why it hurts,
Mhm.
because you're cutting something out that doesn't belong. It wasn't. It wasn't fully complete, and it needed to grow. It needed to facilitate an understanding of true generosity. I love that you speak about giving back to, like, the local shelters and what your daughter is doing. I have always been financial first and actions second. uh, One of the things that I've done in my life is I've participated in Special Olympics. I've given to the Knights of Columbus. So you can kind of tell where I am, spiritually, right? Again, as a Roman Catholic.
Yeah.
And so not only do I give to these, but I also participate as well. But it had always been money first, and then maybe actions. And I love that you are, at least for me, it's not one or the other. It's like an and correct me if I'm wrong. It seems as though generosity is amplified in time and action, and money is almost tertiary. It's almost third in that. Is that right? Am I understanding correctly?
I think that's really it. So, I mean, generosity, especially in your local community, comes in a lot of different ways. So, one of the ways I'm extremely generous, or have been up until last year, was I coached eighth grade football. Even though I was busy as heck working, I blocked off that time to work with the kids in the football. I coached the down locally here. When we moved here, I called the school, wanted to get my kids on the race team. They didn't have enough coaches. I coached downhill ski racing here locally in Minnesota. Um, we do things along the way, and I worked with the DECA program here also. So,
I'm not
business,
familiar. What is that?
DECA is a business program
Oh,
at the
okay.
high school. So it's a volunteer, and they learn about business and marketing and
Oh, very
and
cool.
all of that stuff, so that it's a great program at the school here locally. And
Love
my
it.
daughter's, of course, involved in DECA. In fact, she is. We moved schools last year, out of one school to another, because they had some programs that my daughter wanted. It's
Mm,
kind of like colleges around here in Minnesota. Some have some really
got it.
great programs, and you
Got it.
want to
Got
get them into that school. But the school she moved to doesn't have DECA.
it.
So
Mm,
guess what she did? She started the DECA in last year, and that's good. So
awesome.
she's running two organizations this year as a part of her senior year of graduate.
Amazing.
So she's a really giving person. She's so generous with her
Right.
time. It's amazing. She is she's going somewhere. Um, but it's those things that, to see the eighth grade kids win their football game, and cheer and run around, it's fulfilling. And then all the parents are there. They're appreciative of the time that you're donating. There's no payback besides the joy of doing it.
Yeah.
And that's huge to my heart. And also, with all the other stuff that my daughter does, it's like amazing. But that creates relationships along the way, so it does net. But it is like really great use of rejuvenation time, because it's not focused on the business. It's focused on the business of life.
Yeah.
And it's really fulfilling. And so the next day I come to work jazzed, because we've done that, right? So
Oh man, I love that. And as you're speaking, really diving into the G in the Tiger framework, I'm writing down gratitude. I'm writing down grace. I'm writing down, being grounded. These are all things that come from generosity. And to your point, it leverages or even fills the R in the Tiger mindset, which is rejuvenation, right? How good do you feel being able to give, right? How good does it feel? The last we spoke was in regards to the experience that I had in the turkey run, right? Giving to a young girl, who I was in high school with, and being able and that was life changing. It was life changing, having a moment where being able to help someone in need and experiencing that. I would have never thought. I love this. I would have never considered that rejuvenating, to be able to facilitate a sign of grace in someone's life through generosity. I love that. I love that. We spoke in pre-show too as well, that there were a few things that we needed in order to be generous. You said that there were two things to really kind of go into generosity. What were those two things, and what else do we need in order to truly understand and kind of fulfill this in the mindset and in the framework of the Tiger mindset, right? Of the Tiger framework. What else do we need in generosity?
Well, I mean, the conversation that we had pre-show was kind of wrapped around like we got 5 new clients this week,
Right.
and it was really, these are really new clients. They want to open up businesses. They haven't even started yet, and they're coming from kind of a grassroots level,
Which is fantastic, right?
which is amazing. I mean,
Right.
I just didn't, it's kind of I really appreciate where they're coming from. They're in jobs, they have salaries, they're,
They want to do it right.
they're doing, they want
Yeah.
to jump off, they want to jump off the edge, but they want to know what they're jumping into. I mean, some of them don't even know what they want to do for a business.
That's so
So,
exciting. That is
okay,
so
so
exciting that they're coming to
yeah,
you for the foundation, right? Like to
yeah,
have that Tiger framework interwoven in everything that they do, like from the start. That is so exciting. That is so cool that you're able to do that.
yeah, it's awesome. And the real thing is generosity actually is number one on the list when you're starting a new business. Because
Oh,
when you're starting a new business, there's 2 questions you need to ask: what problem do you solve, and who do you solve it for? And
yeah.
I think that's the 2 things that you were referencing in our pre-show conversation. And so as you're trying to define your business, you have to solve a problem, right? So you need to go find that problem, and then you need to learn that you can solve it. So
Mm,
you need to give that out. You need to give that service out so that you can get some clients that are actually working. So there's a level of generosity that goes, because you're not going to get anything back for that monetarily. You're going to figure it out, and then you need to figure out if while you're solving that problem, it scales, right? You can solve it for many people, or you can put systems in to solve it for many people and scale that.
yeah.
So, some of the advice I've given was to check industries on the net that are having like problems, and then locally to go down to your chamber of commerce and see what kind of discussions are going on, and then find those people and give your services away. Give, right? Generosity. So that's actually the platform for starting a business, is generosity. One thing, there's one characteristic across entrepreneurs that I've always seen, and they're problem solvers, right? They want to solve the problem. They need to solve a problem uh, for their potential customers.
So, so how do you avoid the loop of continually giving with like how do I transition out of that, right? Because I don't want to get stuck in this 9 to 5, working my 9 to 5, and then from 6 to 2 a.m., give. How would I transition from the 6 to 2 a.m. kind of side hustle I'm trying to turn into my main hustle, my main
Mm.
gig? How do you avoid that? How do you avoid being stuck? Because not for nothing, once people find out that you're giving, they kind of come in droves, right? It's like, hey, me too. Hey, over here, right? So how do you start transitioning to say, you know what, I totally understand. I know that you need this. Here's what I have, and then you start selling. Is there a transition? How do you break that cycle?
Well, I mean, clients aren't easy to get. Number one, so the cycle kind of naturally breaks itself.
Mm,
The point there is to give so that you can figure out your processes and get some clients under your belt, right?
mm.
And you as a entrepreneur have, of course, a business plan, and you really have planned out where you're going to go, what you're going to do. So you call that R&D, and you research your solution. You build your solution. You make sure your solution is working to a certain level, that it's got marketability at that point,
Okay,
and then you turn on your machine and you go find clients. Now you have some reference clients, because the one ask you're going to have from those clients
got
is
it,
that they're a reference, right?
got it.
They got their freebie, but they need to be a reference, and then you put together, how you're going to monetize that activity.
I see. So it's in the generosity in finding the skill set, understanding the problem, knowing who I'm solving it for, refining the process in by helping others, right? So, hey,
Mhm.
you're going to help me refine my process. In exchange, I'm going to help you in the solution that I provide. And when you are able to refine the process, is that when you start to go to market, or
Yeah.
is there something else that I'm missing? Like, how do I make
Well,
that
you
right?
come up with a minimum viable product, right? An
Ah,
MVP, right? So you've got your product to where you think it's marketable and scalable, and then you go. You never have 100%, right? It's always going to be a 70 push and fix, depending, of course, depending on what problem you're solving and who you're solving it for. I mean,
sure.
everything goes back to how you interact with your customer is all about the problem that you solve and who you're solving it for. I mean, it all comes from there. So yeah, and that the generosity portion of that is it's a quid pro quo from a certain perspective, but
Sure, sure.
it's still that sense of giving, you know, that really. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. It's really about this. Um, as you come up with your product and you're out there delivering your product, are you getting excited about your product? This has a lot to do with you as an entrepreneur too,
Oh, interesting.
right?
Okay.
So are you excited about doing this? Is this like your purpose? Did you figure this out as your purpose? And that plays a lot in, because if you don't have that excitement behind that product and you don't believe in it and believe in what you're doing, you're going to have a real tough time building a company and creating a company culture wrapped around your disbelief in your own product,
Yeah, for
right?
sure. And,
So,
and it goes right into my next question, and you've answered a portion of it, right? My next question was, well, what are the qualities of an MVP, right? A minimal viable product, right? So you spoke about, well, does it excite you? You spoke about, well, do you believe in it? What are some of the other things that are the qualities of a true MVP, a minimal viable product?
yeah, so that's a great question. So, it really is, because it's different for everybody. But for
Mm,
me, all
yeah,
right, for me, minimum viable product means number one, it solves the problem that it's meant to solve, right? It may be clunky, but does it actually solve the problem?
right.
Okay. Is it scalable? Is there enough people with that problem to solve in the marketplace? And do you know who they are? Okay. And if the answer is yes to both of those questions, then you have what you need to get to go to market,
Mm. And
right?
other than
You have a market and you have a solution that solves the problem that you're targeting.
right, and other than word of mouth, right? There's a there's a there's a great joke that speaks about uh, a certain order of priests who go into to get a haircut, and the barber says, no, 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 father, we're not going to charge you. And he says, thank you, my son, I appreciate it. And then the next day the entire order of priests is outside the door of the barber shop, right? Other than word of mouth, how do you market yourself once you've refined the MVP, right? You know that it scales, right? It solves the problem. It may be rough around the edges, but it's enough to be able to truly solve the problem. How do you get yourself out there? Keeping in mind generosity. How do you market yourself? How do you market yourself as someone who's generous? I would think that that's almost anti-humble to say, "Oh, I'm so generous. I'm giving this away, everyone." Right?
Well, I don't think you're marketing generosity. I
Mm,
think you're using, your power base, your contacts, your friends and family to find people who have that problem. And
mm,
you get in there to talk about that problem, because even when a company pays nothing for what you're going to do for them, they have a cost. They have a cost of doing business with you. And that the benefit has to outweigh the cost, even if you're giving it to them, right? They have to value the time that you're spending with them. So you're still from that point, you're in a sales cycle anyway. you're selling your generosity. But you don't
Right.
quote highlight it as generosity. You highlight as you have a problem, they have a problem, excuse me. You can solve it. Let me get in the door and I'll solve it for you. And and try to get that arrangement put together.
So
But I would,
it's leveraging the power base to then be able to know who has the problem, to find who else has the problem, so that then when you've refined it completely, when you've refined the process to a point in which you can solve the problem, that's when you make the switch to go, hey, I
yeah,
went from free to this is my, 9.99 service. This is my 10.99 service.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, even us, Cleveland Rain. Um, I give away the first hour of consultation for free. I
Right.
want you to get to know me. I want you to, not all personalities match. I'm not right for everybody, right?
Mm.
So I give away a first hour. We have a discussion wrapped around what your goals are, and we call it a clarity session because ultimately, to be a great entrepreneur, you got to be clear on those two things: the problem that you solve and who you solve it for, and clear on what you want your company culture to be.
Mm.
And understanding who you should hire and who you shouldn't hire, and all of the things that go in with starting and growing a business. We really kind of delve into to get clear on over that first hour. And then if you like working with me after that first hour, great, we work together. If you don't, we shake hands and part ways, and and
Sure.
and and that's great. um
But with the intention of providing value.
Oh, you will get value out of that first hour with me. I'll
Nice.
at least help you clarify,
Love
where
that.
you're going with your business.
Right.
And, you may decide now's not the right time and call me back 6 months, a year from
Well,
now and
sure.
go, hey, now it's kind of interesting. These new clients haven't even opened a business. They haven't filed for anything. Um, and that's like amazing to me because I honestly have never had somebody that isn't at least formed contact me. So
Yeah,
it's really a grassroots um, situation, and
that's
I'm
exciting.
I'm
I
loving it. I love it because it brings me back to
yeah.
the days of opening my first businesses.
It
So
it remind it reminds me of having this conversation with my daughter, who's 5, by the way,
mm,
and she's asking these really deep questions. Like she's really starting to find the world and understand why people do things, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely one of my favorite things in my life these days. And to your point, being able to you're saying, to go back to your grassroots. To me, it's a challenge and an opportunity to simplify the complex. It's something that I love to do, is to simplify the complex. And Einstein has even said, if you can't explain it simply, then you still don't understand it completely.
yep,
And
that's right.
I love that you took on these portfolio of clients that have come your way, and the fact that you openly, willingly said, yeah, absolutely, we're gonna take this, and we're gonna bring them up to where we expect them to be. We're gonna help them find their focus. We're gonna help them find that problem. I absolutely I love that, to the
Well,
idea of bringing that time in, right? Because it does take generosity. It's like, I'm going to be generous in this, but at the same time, like, there's results, right? You expect results, and so does the other person. And so the fact that you can combine and intertwine this sense of generosity in business, I just that's not a question. I just love the fact that you did
well,
it.
so here's the other side of that.
Yeah, tell me.
Uh, I'm a little jealous because I wish I
Really?
was that smart when I first jumped in, right?
Oh gosh,
I
please.
jumped in on my own and kind of banged my head against the wall and figured it out before I got that. And I don't know, that's a long, long time ago.
Sure, sure.
I couldn't even tell you if someone like me was or wasn't available at that time. I did some things smart, but
Sure.
most of the things I didn't. So I look at like these young entrepreneurs and I go, geez, they haven't jumped. They're figuring it out first. They're doing it the right way. They're finding somebody. I go, oh God, I wish I would have done that, back then. So, a little bit of you know, post life wrap up on that one.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
What could we have done better? Yeah, we could have done that better for sure.
Well, it
So,
speaks to it speaks to your point about rejuvenation, right? Part of that is to reflect, and being able to do that even in generosity, being able to do that in understanding the grace that you're able to give these new clients, right? Because it was something that you weren't able to give, or that you weren't able to receive, but now
mm,
you are able to give. That in and of itself, now understanding way better this idea of what is generosity, it clearly is in and of itself quite generous, right? Because to your point, right, you had an amazing journey from, I mean, arguably from rags to riches, right? Knocking on doors, you know, barely having anything, to then hundreds of millions of dollars in, corporate corporate consulting and sales and commissions. And it it speaks to, first and foremost, I think it speaks to the guidance and the wisdom that you've been able to pick up. But then it speaks to your generosity, right? Because you don't have to uh, take what you've learned, curate it, simplify it, and then be able to give it to someone, right? You could have stayed solo. You chose to understand, right? Just going back to, what you're excited about. Do you believe in it, right? You understood the problems that you can solve, and decided, yeah, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to help people feel Cleveland rain. And funny enough, I don't think we ever spoke about the name. Can you speak about Cleveland rain, where it came from? Because I know I had asked. I said, that's a cool name, but I don't. What does it mean? So to have people
yeah.
speak
So
Cleveland
it's
rain,
just a cute.
generosity is something else.
It's a cute roll off. So
Yeah.
Grover Cleveland was on the $1,000 bill back when the thousand
Ah,
dollar bill was there, right? So, and a great entrepreneur is a rainmaker. So
love it.
Cleveland Rain, yeah, and I think once people find out what it is, they go, oh my gosh, But it was just a thought that we want to build successful entrepreneurs. We want to build rainmakers, and they're going to make thousands and thousands of
Love it.
dollars once they build it. So
Love it.
that's kind of where it came from.
Well, I'm conscious of the time. I know that we're at the top of the hour. What are the things that you want people to take away from? What are things that people can take away, that if they don't remember anything else, remember this thing? And what's something they can do today?
Well, I think the big takeaway here is that generosity is an action, right? It's not a
Oh,
passive thing. So taking action and being generous in your community will help fulfill you. It will also create community and also build your network. I mean, it has net results from that. So what you can do today is go become a part of something outside of your business within
mm,
your local community, that you can interact with people and that someone benefits from, and be generous. And I'm going to quote scripture here today. If you give, it'll come back to you tenfold,
yeah.
right? So I think that's the big thing. And the second thing is, if you are an entrepreneur, and you're trying to figure out a product, or you want to become an entrepreneur, your local chamber of commerce is a great place to start, and get
Mm,
information on doing
great,
that.
great idea.
Also beyond the coaching that of course we provide and market, there are resources there. There are executives at your chamber of commerce that donate their time, generosity, to help you get started,
Well,
to help you kind of get there so that you can be very, very good with your money. And I always recommend having a coach that holds you accountable to that build out. But the chamber is definitely a great place to start.
love it. Love it. Well, Paul, as always, Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for your generosity and your time in doing this. It's so appreciated. And for everyone who's watching, if you too want to enable your team, your organization, your business with the Tiger framework, the Tiger mindset, or now if you're just starting, head on over to clevelandrain.com, click on that booking button and get some time. Get some time with Paul and get it in, because quite frankly, as the clients come in, and like Paul mentioned, he's bringing in clients often. Get on the schedule. It is absolutely worth your time. Find your direction, put a plan in place with Paul, and stop scratching through life and truly claw towards your goals in life and business. So with that, thanks so much for watching, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.